Little hill behind us here, and when you look down the hill at the downtown, I guess you would call it, you can see all the treetops have been sheared off. And when we walk down that street, it was always interesting. You see one house, it's standing with not too much damage, and the one next to it was totally destroyed.
I'm curious to know also, Jorge, because here it is, it's 10:35 at night, and so normally people would have house lights on, things like that. We know there are lots of power outages out in that part of the state. I mean, I can see lights behind you, but how dark is the town from your perspective?
It's pretty dark. The only lights you're seeing is the one from our camera, the one that we have with the truck, and those of the utility crews down the street, and a couple of headlights here. It is pretty dark. Look this way. And this way you can see there's a few folks walking around. They've got flashlights, but there is no light. Now, a shelter has been set up at the Quarry Elementary School, but we did talk to a few people. They're saying they're going to stick it out in their home tonight. They've got gas, heat, and gas electric, so they're going to stick it out tonight and their home.
Hey, Jorge, tell us a little bit about Munson. How big or small of a community is this? And do you get the sense that people are helping each other out there?
You know, it's not that big a town. I think they call it Main Street is the main street in town. I can't tell you the size of the population, but it's not a big town. You can drive through it in probably in about 4 or 5 minutes, and you're pretty much through it. People say that this is the time for neighbor to help neighbor. Everybody's helping out. Of course, it's a little difficult in the dark. I think you'll see more of that effort tomorrow morning, but certainly there's plenty of search and rescue crews that we saw going through rubble. There's plenty of state police and fire, and certainly a lot of National Grid crews in town trying to somehow restore the power. But that's going to be a pretty big job. The power lines that weren't toppled are also down because the utility poles snapped in half.
Wow. Well, I'm just looking here on Wikipedia. We have this great opportunity. Something like 8,000 plus people live in the town of Munson. So there you go. It's a part of the Springfield, Massachusetts metropolitan area. So we've learned a little bit more about that community as well as many of the communities out in Western Mass tonight, Jorge.
They just made sure that I would say it's in Western Massachusetts.
You got it.
Great job reporting out there, Jorge, and we'll be checking in with him in a little while. And right now, if we can take a look at radar, perhaps we can bring our meteorologist back in, because we're looking at the end of this. Thankfully, the danger is subsiding for most of you, and these are the last thunderstorms and showers that are now pushing off the coast. It's more a marine warning than anything else right now, but let's get the specifics from David or Mike. Which one of you?
Sure, we'll tag team it.
David,
yeah.
there you go.
Of course, you're watching and you're looking at our Storm Team 5 live Doppler weather radar. This strong storm is heading towards the Cape and the Islands. It's not severe, and this really is the last batch of the strong thunderstorms moving between Plymouth as well as Provincetown. Let's head back over to Weather 1. And we can see what's going to be happening across the area. Again, this is the cluster of thunderstorms that we have been watching. As you see that red box in and around the area, that was once the tornado watch. That has since expired. Notice some of the crinkles across the screen right there. That is as we had intense heavy rain in and around our region. That's when we kind of lost power, a little bit of some of the data. Now notice the temperatures. It is 88 degrees right now in New York. It's 70 in Boston. Notice from Syracuse to Montreal, temperatures are in the 70s. So that cooler, drier air is already working into Flint, Green Bay, North Bay, Syracuse, and Montreal. Already noticing rain, cool shafts of air in and around the downtown Boston area. So that is just telling me that not only are we cooling off, but dew points are also dropping. Still fairly mild outside, but we are noticing and will continue to see some improvement with the last batch of intense weather right now shifting in between Plymouth as well as Provincetown. So 8 a.m. That's when we had that first round of intense thunderstorm activity across the North Shore, moving in from Middlesex in through Essex County. That happened at 8:30 this morning, cresting up and over parts of the North Shore, 9:20 this morning, down in through Taunton, Marshfield, heading over the Cape Cod Canal, heading towards the Cape and the Islands. That was early this morning. That was just the leading edge of that warm and steamy air. And then it was this afternoon, 3:45. That's when we began to see some of the intense activity from Keene, New Hampshire, all the way down in through Western Massachusetts. It first was Keene that prompted that initial not only severe thunderstorm warning, but tornado warning. We already had the tornado watch across the area, but at 3:45, that was tornado number 1 in Keene, New Hampshire. And then at 4:30, that's when we first saw the tornadoes in Westfield, and then heading over to Springfield, and eventually over to the Sturbridge area at 4:35, and then in and around the Sturbridge at 5:25, actually, and then again at 6:25, once again in Westfield, once again in the Springfield area, and then in and around Metro West to down from Boston up to Lawrence, fanning back in through really right along the Mass Pike in through Middlesex County, Worcester County. That's when we had round 3, round 4, round 5 of the severe thunderstorms. And then from 10 o'clock this evening all the way through 10:15 up and over the South Shore. These are the storms that right now are edging and are running towards the Cape and the islands. Notice all the storm reports. These are the hail signatures across our area. There are the tornadoes across the Connecticut River Valley. Here's that tornado right around 84. This is the one that was in the Sturbridge area. These are some of the hail reports, some of the tornadic activity reports, and some of the large damage that we had earlier today. Again, numerous reports of tornadoes. What we're going to be doing, we already have, according to the Severe Storm Forecast Center in Norman, Oklahoma, 7 reports of tornadoes, but clearly from Westfield to Springfield between 4:30 and 4:32, Sturbridge to Westfield again at 6:07, and then another tornado in and around the Sturbridge area shortly after 7 o'clock. We're talking a lot about not only damage, and we'll continue to talk about damage for the next several days as teams of meteorologists fan out into the damage. What they're going to be looking is some classic signatures of damage, whether they're down trees. They're going to notice not only the actual signatures, but how far some of the elements were carried. This will give them a good indicator of how strong these storms were. Were they EF0s, EF1, EF2? Most of us are thinking probably EF2, winds well over 100 miles an hour, between 111 and 135 miles per hour. These are some of the strongest tornadoes Massachusetts ever has. Of course, the Worcester tornado was F4 or F5 on the standards back in the 1950s, different standards than we use right now. So let's scan the sky currently. This is our Storm Team 5 Doppler net. This is located not only up in Gray, New Hampshire, Gray, Maine, Taunton, Massachusetts, out to Albany, New York. This is that one lone cluster of storm. Just got off the phone from a viewer in Yarmouthport, and he says doing absolutely nothing over the Cape, but looking out of his windows, looking westward, and he is seeing some of that intense activity, seeing the vivid lightning and hearing the loud thunder. So although these storms are not necessarily severe as they head towards the Cape, they are still very loud, cranking out a lot of vivid lightning as well as some heavy downpours. Here are some of the temperatures across the region, mainly in the 60s and 70s. Here is that cold front as it's marching in through the Connecticut River Valley. We had some of the strong storms well ahead of the cold front. So as this cold front continues to march from west to east, we should see an improving condition. That's going to be the trend throughout the evening hours, throughout the overnight hours. So this is really the quiet after the storms. Temperatures are going to be falling. Dew points are going to be dropping. So we should see quite a bit of improvement shortly. We've already seen that in central and western Massachusetts. Heather and Liz?
David, thank you very much. We've talked about all evening long the extensive, amazing lightning shows, Mike Wonkum. And before we get to you, I want to show you this, and then you can talk about this. An unbelievable lightning strike in the Prue in Boston. We have that photo, I believe, for everyone. Oh, I guess we've lost it. We'll try and get it back for you. But let's talk about the lightning.
Those are stunning photos.
Stunning images we've seen
from
all
everywhere,
evening.
all over the community.
And people always say, you know, lightning only strikes once, you know, that kind of thing. But the Prue gets hit a lot. And some photographers, and there's several of them around town, that actually sit there and they have their camera stuck on the Prue because they know it's going to get sparked several times during an event like this. Hey, I want to show you what's happening on radar. David was mentioning these storms that are just off the South Shore, but they are now moving into the outer Cape right now. And I've put a little tracker on those. Should be in P-Town here in about 7 minutes, Truro in about 22 minutes. This is moving off to the east at about 30 miles per hour. So although we're talking about things really winding down, the Cape is not seen too much, and these are coming across with quite a bit of lightning. You probably, if you're in Truro right now and you're looking off towards Plymouth, you're seeing in the distance off there an awful lot of lightning going on. So these storms are out there and they're still tracking their way, but boy, they're moving fast. Let's go down around this. We were looking at some stuff down around Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. You see where those cells are going right now. You can see they're kind of winding down very, very quickly as well. So we're getting beyond that. Actually, on Martha's Vineyard, who reports some hail, pea-sized hail, and also a lot of lightning and thunder, but they have really lost intensity. Remember that water around there is only about 54 degrees. So when you get water that cold, it really takes